Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Sakoda. I'm the founding partner of a venture capital firm called Decibel. I'm very excited to host this session. Bindu, I believe you already introduced yourself. Is that correct? So,
everybody knows me.
First, I know everybody knows you, but not everybody knows how wonderful you are. So if you haven't had a chance to meet Bindu, please send her an email or follow her on Twitter. Set up some time and get to know her and the entire Abacus family. It's really a spectacular company, and thank you for hosting us today. What I thought I would do is maybe do short introductions to start. So if I could have Gus and Akshay do a short introduction, and then as a part of teeing up what it means to be an AI-first organization, I'm actually going to ask each of you to go a little bit more in depth into your background and your experience with AI in different companies. So we'll have a chance to go into your longer life stories as we specifically start to talk about being an AI-first company. But maybe just to kick things off, Gus, would you mind going first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. My name is Gus Shahin. I'm the CIO here at Flex. We're a global manufacturing and supply chain company. And I'm also responsible for what we call Flex Business Systems, which is really business process for the company. So glad to be here on the panel and good to talk to both you, Bindu and John again.
Awesome. Akshay, would you mind going next?
Sure. I'm Akshay Tandon. I would say my entire career has been in the data and analytics space, a lot of it in financial services and fintech. And until most recently, I was the head of data and analytics at LendingTree, which, as some of you may know, is one of the leading marketplaces for someone looking for a loan.
Wonderful. So I think what's amazing about talking about being an AI-first company is the three of you have actually worked in very different companies in very different industries over the last 10 or 20 years. And in many ways, they all are representative of where I think companies are in the journey to being an AI-first company. If I start with Bindu, many people know that you started your career at Google. I can't think of a company that was more AI-centric or more AI-first than Google was. So it's a little unfair to start with you to talk about what it means to be an AI-first company, because I think in many ways you were birthed an AI-first company. So we're going to come to you last.
Great.
Gus has spent 20 years at Flextronics, which is a traditional physical industry. And obviously it's unfair to say that you can embrace AI and embrace machine if you start with a physical business, because much of the world was not digitized until around 1995 to 2000. So I think it's also unfair to start with you, Gus. We're going to come to you second.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think your story is the most interesting to start with, because I do think, in particular, your career starting out at Capital One. And for those of you who don't know the story of Capital One, Capital One was known as being one of the early disruptors in financial services in the late 1990s and early 2000s, because they were one of the few companies to start to use consumer data and to build data as their competitive weapon, not just for acquiring customers, but also for differentiating their products. So I actually want to start with you, Akshay. I want to start with your career. Tell us about Capital One. Tell us about every step between Capital One and LendingTree, and also give us a sense for what it means to embrace data, machine learning, and AI in an industry that actually started out being much lighter on data and much more conventional 20 to 25 years ago when you joined the industry.
Yeah, thanks, John. You know, and in a couple of you already highlighted some of the success that Capital One's had with data, but you know, I think if anyone's looking for you know, an example of can AI and can data and analytics really disrupt an industry, I think Capital One's a very fine example, at least in the financial services space, right? At least historically, you know, if you go back to the 90s and the early 2000s. We didn't really think of financial services as being very, very innovative, and Capital One in many ways led that charge. And you know, the founders used to joke back when Capital One was a single product, you know, it was only credit card. I think at least the internal belief right down to the core was we're not a credit card company, we're an IBS company, and not the bad meaning, but like information-based strategy. It was sort of so steeped in our DNA at the time. There are, when I think about the commonality, I think one, it was just in the culture, right? Like the culture of Capital One was incredibly data driven, and in some ways incredibly egalitarian in that regard. It wasn't so much that a person's opinion mattered more. On the other, the decision making was extremely data driven, and so you really could argue your point, or you really could put forth a hypothesis and prove it out on the basis of data. So, in terms of what it means to be data first culture, like you really have to believe that all the way, and you really have to attract the kind of people that are drawn to that. The other thing, and this is a common theme that you would hear. I mean, like almost anyone that talks about being AI first, and both Capital One and Learning Tree sort of embrace this, was just having a very sort of strong data foundation. I've often said in the past that AI is a little bit like a skyscraper, and you only see the building that comes on top, but you don't see the foundation. You don't see the efforts that go into the data, and to making sure that not just this quantity of data, but it's well connected. You have more universal data warehouses as opposed to data silos, and just having that connective tissue across your different business lines. And both the companies I really see had that. Capital One, when it expanded from credit card to auto finance to banking, and then really at Learning Tree, I was part of that journey from the start. We expanded from just being mortgage to expanding into personal loans, credit cards, and as we brought more and more business lines, there was this sort of very strong belief that the whole has to be greater than the sum of its parts. And the only way to really make that is to make sure that the different business lines are connected. We understand the user and we stay with them through their entire financial journey. So that was, I would say, a very sort of core element. And the third piece that I really want to call out is, like a pervasive automation, or sort of a, solving the last mile problem, if you will. So the AI, the solutions that we came up with, it wasn't just, in abstract, or it was with a very business first mentality. And we were constantly looking to make sure that the AI solutions are really embedded and improve the day-to-day decision making. So while there were clear long-term investments, there are also short-term wins to continue fueling those long-term investments. Otherwise, you end up with a little bit of a disillusionment if you're not seeing wins along the way, and you're just asking your stakeholders to show patience. So I think that definitely was sort of a constant recharge that we provided to the organization.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I want to ask you a question that I think you specifically can answer that others can't. And I think you've had the luxury of being a part of many different types of companies in the financial services industry. Some have been data first, like Capital One and Lending Tree. Some have been more traditional banks. What does it mean to be AI first in your eyes in financial services? Can older companies become AI first? Is it a cultural shift? Is it too hard? Maybe you can talk about your observation of the entire industry and describe what it really means to become data driven and AI first, and contrast starting out with that methodology versus trying to catch up to it.
Sure. So in terms of in terms of can other companies catch up to it, I would definitely say the desire is there. There is no lack of desire. It's a little bit like, like we live in Silicon Valley. So many people want to become entrepreneurs, right? The desire is clearly there, but when you really break it down, what does it mean? What is the complexity of achieving the task? The investments that you have to make in data unification, right? It's a little bit like if you tell someone, right, like the sleepless nights that an entrepreneur experiences, the anxiety that this might not go anywhere, right, like the probability of failure and all that. That's when a lot of people sort of fall apart. It's the same thing in AI investment, right? Like you have to first make the investment, really put in the sweat before you can start seeing some of the rewards. So I would say the desire is there. where some companies I think fall short is either in the understanding or in the willingness to put in that sweat equity. And that sort of goes into like, what does it take? Like it takes first and foremost, recognizing the state of your data, right? Like data is a huge lead time in analytics, and just recognizing, how it is. And like, can you answer like basic business questions? Right? Can you come up with simple heuristic rules? Do you know what moves your business forward? Right? Like that level of understanding and that level of investment in data is extremely important. That is probably, I would say, like table stakes. Where AI companies really start to differentiate themselves also in the realm of data is like strategic data acquisition. So products are designed with the intent to capture more data that then fuels the next competitive advantage. So even when, like, at Learning Tree, even when we are thinking about, just someone coming to look at our website to look for a loan, we would think about what is it that we want to know about this individual that can then allow us to offer them, a much better experience, right? So we want to know where they are in their financial journey, what have they already considered, and all of that would lead us to say, okay, like what is the most relevant choice of lenders that we can, match them with, that would then allow us to close this loan or give us the best experience or maybe curate this customer for a longer financial journey. So there's this constant thought about what do we already know about the customer and what do we wish we knew more that could then help us offer them a more relevant choice. So I think that's sort of the the version 2.0 of data capturing. So there is a clear sort of thought around data when it comes to being AI first. The other piece I mentioned the piece about culture, but there is a focus on what are the problems that we want to solve in the short term. I've heard too many examples of the success rate of machine learning or AI models. I think if you start out too much with sort of pie in the sky problems that don't have that don't have a short term win component to it, you end up with a less than average less than stellar betting average. So I think having a point of view on what problems you're trying to solve, both in the short and medium term, where do you want to take that, and how can AI help solve those business problems? So really embedding that into the last mile analytics, I think, is another crucial component.
Great, and put a pinhole in that because we're definitely going to come back to that. I want to make sure that we talk about short-term versus long-term and quick hitting versus long-term investments in AI. We're going to come back to that later in the session. I want to switch over to Gus. And Gus, I find your story fascinating because you've been at Flex for 20 years. You've been in the middle of working, you operate in 100 countries and have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of employees, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of SKUs. You guys have been known for being on the leading edge of pushing the digital frontier in the physical business. So I would love to understand your entire journey. What was it like when you joined in 2000? And what were some of the steps you guys took to help Flex become a more data-driven and AI-first company?
Yeah, no, thanks. So, when I first joined in 2000, obviously, Flex was your traditional contract manufacturer, right? You just built to print. Customers would simply just give us the design and the bill of materials, and we would provide a factory, a location, and build it for them and ship it where they wanted us to ship it to. But that whole industry started transforming over the years, and a few years into that, they started asking us for more services, right? Can you actually manage the supply chain for us? Can you start helping us with some design? As a lot of these big customers started moving away from hardware into software, you still need the hardware, right? So hardware design and other things. So the industry itself started transforming. And when I took over, as CIO 7 years ago, it was interesting. One of the first exec meetings I had, at the time, it was really interesting to see everyone around the table talking about AI. We need AI, we need this. But like Akshay said, as I started digging into it, my first couple of months on the job, I realized none of them actually knew what AI was, right? They hear about it at that level, but they don't really know what it is. Sort of like, when cloud came out years ago, everybody would say, hey, we need to move to the cloud, we need to move to the cloud. But you start asking them why and how and all that, and you realize, they don't quite understand what that means. So, yeah, so one of the first things I did was, as I started doing a little bit of a deep dive, in my role, I realized that, hey, all they're asking for is really insights and BI, not really AI, right? They're asking for just data being available to them. I think if we start there, and in order to do AI, obviously you need data, right? The more data, the better the AI. So that's kind of how we started, and that's how the journey kind of took off 7-8 years ago. We figured, let's start figuring out how to digitize our supply chain. If you think about Flex, like you said, we're very global. We operate at very tight margins. At the end of the day, we manage material. I mean, we spend almost as much as our revenue in material. We spend $20 billion a year buying material in, and we need to make sure that material comes in only when we need it, hold on to it for the shortest amount of time, and ship it out as quickly as possible. And that determines our cash flow and our margins, really, at the end of the day, if you think about it. So that's why we figured, let's start there. Let's start getting the data first, providing insights. And then once we have the insights, which we've done and we've had success, now we have enough data to actually start taking the next step and, doing more predictions and other things we can do using AI, since it's so much more mature and the organization is mature and understand it better. And that's really helped a lot. And, like Akshay said, culture for us, if you've got the CEO and the ELT, the executive leadership team, convinced, I think you can drive a different behavior throughout the company, but the buy-in has to be all the way at the top.
Yeah, can you give us a sense over the course of 20 years, how has the culture around data and AI changed? I completely respect that at the beginning, maybe people didn't understand it, but in 2020, I'm sure it must be the other way around, almost a sense of anxiety that people have to embrace this world faster than we all even know how to.
Yeah, so, early on it was, as I mentioned, it's really just collecting data, analyzing it in the form of spreadsheets or whatever. The data is always at least 2 to 3 weeks old. By the time you're looking at it, there's really not much you can do. That was the case for the first maybe 10, even 12 years, I would say. Later on, things changed. And as we realized, okay, now we're, this is really starting, looking at stuff 2 weeks old is no longer going to add value. We need data quicker, we need it in real time, and we need to make decisions immediately that can really impact the balance sheet. So that was the first thing we did. And now we're at a point where we're actually predicting, what we need our customers to do or what we need to do with our suppliers early on before we even start doing any of that. So it's really a big shift. And again, I was fortunate enough to convince the leadership team at the time that, we can solve these problems with data. We have tons of data. We just have to figure out how to extract that data and start building insights on top of it. And as you start showing them real ROIs and they start seeing it, then, you get the support, and that culture starts trickling down to the entire org.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it now to Bindu, because I can't think of somebody who has a better picture of what it means to be not only in an AI first organization, but maybe in 2 or 3 AI first organizations, having worked at Google, Amazon, and Uber. So perhaps you could demystify what it means for everybody. I think some companies maybe started that way and were fortunate to start that way, but some companies are learning how to become AI first. So can you demystify what it means to be in some of the companies that in some ways set the standard that everybody else is trying to catch up to?
Thanks, John, for hosting. And yes, for sure. So I like to, tell this anecdote whenever I think about AI first with respect to Google. When I was at Google, which was almost a decade ago, AI was obviously in its infancy. People have been talking about AI for the last 60 years or more, but it wasn't applied as much as it is being applied today. And the way Google would think about this, I would say primarily because of Larry Page, is that any project you would start, you would have to first think about how you would apply ML to that project. So, I think that's kind of where, if I don't remember exactly right, but I feel like Google may have coined this term AI first, which is how will you apply machine learning to your project? And the reasoning behind this really was because of the extreme success we had seen with machine learning and to some level even statistical models at that point within Google. The most successful, of course, was search. One of the reasons people wonder always why no one actually caught up to Google on search, and the biggest reason really is not because they had a great search index, which they did, not because they could crawl all the websites really quickly and come up with PageRank, which they did, but because they had this one AI model, or call it a machine learning model, really one machine learning model, which would basically look at who clicked on which result, and then kind of move these results based on user feedback. So fundamentally, this model basically kept getting better and better and better as Google got more and more usage. It got so much better that fundamentally the search results compared to somebody who started newly, like say Bing or what have you, were much better, and therefore there was a virtuous feedback loop up. So in a lot of ways, that model kind of, created that huge moat for Google, which I think is till today this big moat. And seeing that success and seeing what AI can do kind of got everybody inside of Google very, very excited about that. A lot of the other deep tech companies, Amazon, Uber, Facebook, have taken a similar approach, and you see their market caps. Maybe not so much Uber right now for obvious reasons, but I test these really high market caps, this competitive moat that they have, in large part to have applied AI and created kind of a fantastically great technology, which has been useful to consumers in many ways, but also kind of created this moat. So this is coming from that DNA. I think organizations everywhere can actually benefit a lot from taking a very similar approach. At least, I can imagine someone like Gus not thinking about AI because they have other bigger problems to solve. But at least kind of thinking about it peripherally, even when they're starting a project, and seeing where you can build your models, which will continuously learn and help you produce ROI or move your key metrics, I think will be a key differentiator over the next decade for any company in any industry.
Yeah, I think you're actually hitting on a really important point. I like to say that every company is becoming a software company or will be competing with one soon. You don't necessarily need to agree with me, but I think that maybe prior to 2020, people had more questioning as to whether that was true. In 2020, people are maybe acknowledging that may become true. So perhaps culture is shifting and perception is shifting very quickly as to what it means to become a software company. And then the moment that you realize that you need to move in this direction, I think you understand how important it is to have a continuous and persistent digital relationship with your customer, which means you have tons of data coming in and they expect you to learn from it. So I think it's very hard to do data collection, machine learning, and AI without having a culture that is ready to continuously learn from its data. So I think it's people, it's process, it's technology, but ultimately I think we all have to become continuous learners. And if we can't become continuous learners, then I think other companies will find ways to outcompete us and win over our customers. I'd love to transition to, I think, a really important topic. It is perhaps the one that is on a lot of people's minds as I see the questions coming in on the Q&A as well. And that's, what are the easy ways to win in AI? I think if you're Google or Amazon, perhaps there's some moonshots you can take. I like to use driverless cars as a metaphor. I think everyone saw driverless cars as the future and the promise, but I think perhaps that's an example of a long-term investment that can fall into the trough of disillusionment, where people expected the car to be here by now, and they expected to be able to just hit a button and be able to jump in any car and go wherever they want by now. So maybe that's a metaphor for a long-term investment that takes a very long period of time and a lot of money. But some organizations are just not ready for that yet. They just want to find quick wins, and they want to find ways to see value immediately and see quick time to value. So maybe I'll start with Akshay, because I know that you were heading down this route. Where are some of the obvious quick wins for AI, and how do you get your organization to go from, using a metaphor from a prior panel, going for the home runs versus hitting the singles and doubles?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And actually, I really like the example that you quoted here about, driverless cars and the fact that it's taking longer. Maybe I'm a glass half full guy, but if you break down what it takes for a car to be driverless, right? Like 20 years ago, or maybe 30 years ago, we weren't even talking about driverless cars, right? There have been advancements along the way that have even gotten us thinking or talking about it, right? So one should give credit to those advancements that has allowed us to be, aspirational and talk about driverless cars. And what I mean by that is just there's obviously an autonomous software that is necessary for driverless cars, but there are all these supporting things, right? Like you need cameras that allow you to see where your car is positioned. You need automatic like indicators going in, blind spot detection. Like there are all these lane departure warning signals, automatic cruise control, all of these things that are necessary for the car to be driverless that have found their way in our everyday cars and actually significantly improve our driving experience, right? They've reduced the probability of collision. And they are all narrow applications of AI, with driverless being that generalized application that packages all together. And that's what I think about when I think about wins. They're all very meaningful wins. They give you a competitive advantage. They make your product that much more appealing, and we need to find those in our everyday applications. Some of the examples that I like when I think about like LendingTree, where we made a lot of advancements in analytics. Like every step of the journey, we applied AI and just made our product a little bit better, right? So like starting from when we moved from just being a mortgage company to a company that had multiple loan applications, thinking through which product or where the customer might be in their financial journey. So which product should we target them next, right? Like do they need a personal loan? Do they need a mortgage? Thinking about that had a certain component of AI application. You go a step further. And you think about, okay, well, what within this product matters most to them? If someone's shopping for a personal loan, are they looking for a longer term? Are they looking for lower interest? Are they looking for trying to match their payment? So because we have a suite of lenders, so thinking through which offering should we surface to the top that's most relevant. That's something that matters to the customer. Thinking about what lenders to specifically match them with is an AI application. Now we didn't quite make it. If you think of driverless car as sort of an end state and just wonder, we didn't quite make it to the point of, you need a personal loan, here it is for you. No, but every step of the journey was a little bit of a better experience and more personalized. And that would be one of my recommendations. Like break down move away a little bit from this one holistic solution, and break it down into multiple bite-sized applications and think about how AI or ML could make that particular step, that particular experience just a bit better.
That is absolutely wonderful advice. And I think sometimes we take for granted that all of the advancements towards driverless cars is showing up in our cars every day. And actually the car is much more software driven and much safer because of that. Gus, I want to turn to you right now, because we're also getting some questions that I think you could directly address. So in addition to how do we find the quick wins, how do we do so when we might have an environment where people don't spend a lot of money? I think AI and ML traditionally seems like it's expensive, that it's a very technical field. We have to recruit and hire really great people. We have to invest in technology. We have to invest in infrastructure. and it just takes some time to get to value. So how do you convince people to spend the money and to spend the time to get the quick wins in AI?
Yep, sure. I mean, look, in our case, it has to be incremental, like Akshay said, and I'm sure everyone agrees, has to be incremental wins. Just to put things in perspective, and as I mentioned before to you and Bindu and maybe for the audience, for us, it has to impact the balance sheet. For us, inventory and number of days is super important. And to give the audience a perspective of what I mean is every single day of inventory we remove out of the system is about $60 million of free cash flow for us. So if you think about, using AI to help us reduce the number of days, frees up hundreds of millions of free cash flow for us. So the way we did it is partner for sure, partner with companies like Abacus and others. That's for us the easiest and quickest way. We don't set it up like, it's not an SAP migration, 7-year, multi-million-dollar project. Very incremental. We have our SMEs work with partners, and we also have some of our own resources, of course. And you start showing incremental wins, and as you recognize those ROIs, you suddenly, see a big change in interest, and obviously you're starting not just to do it on supply chain, but many other areas that can impact the balance sheet.
And can I ask a question for both of you? Is it possible to have AI incorporated bottoms up in a company? Do you think you can really enable product managers, data scientists, people to really bring AI bottoms up into an organization? Or do you think this has to be driven tops down? Do you think that leadership and management and your CEO even needs to make AI an agenda?
I mean, in Flex's case, we have 170,000 employees scattered all over the world. I think it has to be tops down. We take data very seriously, obviously, in the company because it helps us drive efficiency. I mean, just in manufacturing alone, when you're doing lean and other things, that's all data driven. But, for us to be innovative and leverage AI, which is, super sophisticated at the highest level when it comes to data, I think it has to come from the top because, it's going to be very difficult to kind of push things up. So in my opinion, at least for Flex, for sure, tops down.
Yeah, I would sort of echo that. I think that's more just a result of organizational culture. I do think that any individual can bring it to their specific area, but I do feel like if it comes bottoms up, the sphere of influence might be a little bit limited. So the more pervasive, the more widespread you want it across the organization, I think it would need to come a little bit from the top. Doesn't necessarily have to come from the CEO, although C-suite backing certainly helps. But for instance, in Learning Tree, I led that charge. So I think at least a certain executive level support does go a longer way, and it ensures that when it's coming from the bottom up, the person might be more aware of just their specific problem. Whereas when it's coming from someone that is seeing problems across the organization, they might be able to tackle the highest value problems first. So there are certain advantages from it coming from someone that's seeing challenges across the organization.
Bindu, I'd love to get your opinion on this because I know that you're democratizing the cost and the access to machine learning and AI. And I know that you're trying to look at common use cases that people might have and try to let people bring their own data and get going as quickly as possible, maybe without investing as much time and as much money as you might see traditionally. So are you seeing success in people being able to bottoms up build data-driven and machine learning cultures inside of companies? Or what are some of the early lessons that you're seeing?
Sure, I think we see three trends, right? The size of the company matters. So regardless in some ways of the industry even, the larger the company, the better it is coming from top down. So in smaller companies, bottoms up does work. And when I mean smaller, I mean if you have a company which is a size between say 50 to 300 or so, bottoms up will work just because whoever is kind of pushing AI basically can get to like various different stakeholders really quickly. There is a lot of, it's easy to communicate across these different departments. So we do see kind of what I call startups, especially in the personalization space, get excited about AI, having kind of engineers as well as kind of, I would say people in the engineering organization reaching out and starting the conversation and then kind of moving it to other stakeholders, and that's succeeding. But as the company is bigger, it's much, much better if it's actually top down. Primarily because any AI model really will touch multiple different parts of the company. Very rarely do you see something where you can be like, hey, this just applies to us and that's that. Even in our marketing panel before this, I would say a lot of AI models apply both to marketing and sales. So you do need some buy-in from that other department, and it's much easier to get that buy-in if it's coming from top down. So the size matters. The second thing which really matters is access to data. Again, different organizations do this differently. Some organizations are all about, hey, let's leverage the insights from our data as quickly as possible. So when you have that culture, things move very rapidly. Again, that usually is, again, dependent, I think, somewhat on size. And so if somebody kind of, I would say, lower down in the organization has that access and can share data really easily and can go quickly, we see actually magical things happen. And so because they can come to our service, actually literally not even talk to us, take their data, try it out, see if things work. I think that's changing too, though, right? Over time, I think people will get kind of like comfortable with data governance, data compliance, comfortable with using SaaS services, just like they're getting comfortable with using cloud services, and things will be more bottoms up over time. But I would now say that it's mostly, kind of almost binary based on the size.
You actually just touched on a few questions that are coming in on the Q&A. So I'm going to have you answer one of them, and then I'm going to have Akshay and Gus answer the other ones. So first, you mentioned size matters, but there's also this perception that smaller companies can't compete against larger companies, that somehow disadvantaged. But maybe what I'm hearing from you is that's not the case. So how do smaller companies compete against bigger companies using machine learning and AI?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I'm actually very excited about small companies. When I mean small, it's very hard to have machine learning and AI if you're like a 5-person company, right? Just because you don't have the data. But once you get to say even like 25, 30, and if you're a company who has a few thousand data points, it's really important to consider machine learning right from the get-go, as opposed to saying, hey, I'm going to wait till I get a few million data points and then go from there. And so small companies who actually adopt AI first, especially I would say in the SaaS or the B2C space, do see that jump even in terms of revenue very quickly. Recently we've been working with a company. It's not that small, around 400 employees or so, a company called Prodigy. They have a website called Swagbucks. They applied one of our AI models to their user experience, and they saw instantly revenue per user jump up by 20%. So these are the kinds of, I would say, significant changes you want to see with your AI models. Choose an area where you think you can see that change, and don't wait until you're getting a lot of data. Start small. In fact, another really small startup called FlipFit, TikTok for shopping, is using us. Their whole feed is now AI driven. And I have to say that, over time, that feed is going to get much smarter. And now suddenly the TikTok technology is not something which only TikTok owns, but it will be available as a service to pretty much anyone who wants to build AI feeds. So small companies should think about machine learning ASAP.
Awesome. 2 quick questions, just out of respect for all the questions that came in, and then we'll wrap. This question is for you, Akshay. So there are some questions about data privacy. And I think you are probably the best positioned in this panel to answer this question. What has been the history around collecting consumer data? And what are some of your predictions as to what we need to do to protect data, either because we're trying to do service to the customer or because governments are telling us what we need to do with data?
Yeah, well, I mean, financial services is clearly one area where we try, where data privacy is extremely important. Yeah, this is one of those where unfortunately, like it's not one where I have like a very AI focus that sort of an answer. I mean, I think we're just going to see expectations around data privacy that they're only going to continue to go up. There's no doubt about that. And I think organizations will truly have to put a lot of focus into, what is the data that we're collecting? How are we storing it? And quite candidly, just like what is it that what is it that we are and are not comfortable using in our AI models, and living with the limitations of what it is that we either cannot use or you just ethically don't want to use. Right? Like at Learning Tree, and even at Capital One, we had a practice of whatever features we were collecting, we would run them by legal. Just make sure that we are not just meeting the minimum requirements of the law, but actually staying above that. So like you certainly don't want to be breaking the law. You run into trouble with the regulator. You don't want to be the kind of company that violates the consumer trust or have a headline problem, right? Where it comes up that you did something that was within the letter of the law, but was otherwise not in the best interest of the consumer. So no doubt, I think expectations around privacy are going to keep going up, and I think that will put some limitations on your AI model. I think what we're going to find is there are technologies that are coming up to work with that. They go a very long way in anonymizing data to a point where it's just incredibly hard to tie whatever it is that you're collecting or using in your modeling to the individual user. I think there have been articles written about that from some of the tech companies. So you're going to see more and more of those make their way into everyday modeling. So I think that this is a bar as we live in the world of where people's data is more ubiquitously available. That I think there's a bar that's going to keep going up, and you will see companies adapt to it.
Final question, and we'll wrap things up. Gus, I've saved the best for last. Though we all come from diverse backgrounds and have diverse jobs, we all share one thing in common, and that's we're either currently competing with Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, or we all will be competing with Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So I wonder, in this world of machine learning and AI, I think there's a perception that in some ways we all have to just resign ourselves to working with them and accept that they have powers and tools that we should all use. You of course have chosen to go a different direction and to work with smaller companies, but maybe close things out and describe the lay of the land. Are we all supposed to just embrace our overlords, or are there other options?
No, that's a good question. I mean, we've the cloud providers are our customers, so we definitely work with them as needed, and we've invited them to work with us on certain things. But from my experience, working with a company like Abacus has been way more successful for us. Smaller company, easier to work with, really understands the issue. As these cloud guys get bigger and bigger, it's very difficult to really work with them on certain situations, especially like in our case, we want to focus on this and only this. Sometimes we feel they have different agendas and stuff, so it made it really hard. So in my opinion, I think there's great startups out there. I have within my org, I have a function that works only with startups, and we've seen great success, Abacus obviously being one of them. You can work with them. You don't have to spend millions to start. It's not a 3-year project. You can see incremental wins, and that's what you want. And I think that's the way to do it.
Awesome. Well, Bindu, thank you.
Yeah.
All of us.
I'll just echo what Gus said. I mean, even at Learning Tree, we constantly feared whether one of the tech giants would encroach into our space, right? Like Google was trying, they've had some start-stop in travel. We also fear that they would have some start-stop in lead gen. I think smaller companies can maintain their competitive advantage, obviously, while working with the tech giants and using, AutoML tools like Abacus. I think there is a way to you can retain your competitive advantage and stay out of the pack.
Agreed.
Well, Akshay, thank you very much. Gus, thank you very much. Bindu, thank you for having us. I think we have one more minute before the next panel starts. So would you like us to stay on, or